Hello, everyone. This is Donnie, aka Elevated, joined by Jenkins here with
Hello.
episode 13 of Alchemy Answers. And we've got
Finally
some
at the
great
unlucky
questions.
number. Right
Lucky,
after Halloween.
it's lucky in some senses. I know there's plenty of people that think that 13 is a lucky number.
There are different cultures. Canadian culture, for example.
Kind of depends on whether you're a glass half full or half empty type of person, right?
That's
Which
true.
is also how your Dota performance usually goes, right?
God, I don't want to talk about my Dota.
So we've got some really good questions, and let's just go ahead and get into them real quick, since you guys came here to have your questions answered. We don't want to fuck around.
We're not gonna fuck with you, okay? You need to relax.
Question number 1. What do you think about throwing cores like Drow in the offlane? Say you ran an AM safe lane, Invoker mid, and Drow offlane. Is that something worth considering, or are offlane style heroes pretty fixed?
I think it's definitely something worth considering, although I don't think you would want to pick an anti-mage and a Drow in the same game because they do the same thing, which is hit creeps for 30 minutes while their team loses, and then come online after 30 minutes and fight with like 50 items. But in any case, I think it's fine to throw like a carry style hero in the offlane. For a while there, we were seeing Lycan put into the offlane, but it was more so because he could do all of the things that you wanted an offlaner to do in the current patch. And I think right now, the offlane and the safe lane, and I should say the 3 core roles are all kind of the same. You just want every job to be done in a game of Dota. It doesn't really matter what the lanes are, as long as you just want to have the best lanes possible for each of the cores. Like usually you'll have 2 cores do pretty well, 1 core gets sacked, and you want to aim for that, or for 3 cores doing well coming out of the laning phase. And it doesn't really matter what your lanes are. I mean, I've seen people do like Terrorblade Nyx Assassin lanes. Jesus Christ, could you imagine telling somebody 2 years ago that there'd be a Terrorblade Nyx Assassin lane? They're like, bro, that's two melee heroes. That sucks. And it's like, well, yeah, that sucks because that's just the sacked lane. They just know that lane's going to do poorly, so they put the shittiest support there and the shittiest core there, and then make the other 2 lanes really strong. So yeah, if you need to put Drow in the offlane in order to make your lanes the best for the game, then absolutely feel free to do it. Maybe it's even just a good offlane Drow pick, where like, let's say you have a safe lane hero like a Necrophos. That's typically a very offlane style hero, but can be played as a carry too. That's when an offlane Drow would make a lot of sense, because you know that Necrophos hero is capable of playing like a traditional offlaner, despite a guy picking it to be a carry, you know? And then it's a ranged hero, of course, so you benefit the Necrophos by picking the Drow as well. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty good. It just depends on the game. And I would not pick it with anti-mage, by the way. That's an important one.
Yeah, I made a video pretty recently about picking Doom safe lane and why it was a good pick in a particular game. And it pretty much revolved around having a carry hero in the offlane. A Weaver. Weaver's a hero that can very easily transition into a full hard carry. And especially in pubs where people tend to prioritize damage and kill items over anything else, basically, because people just want to kill shit. A lot of the times, it's actually better to just pick something utility as a safe laner, because your offlane is just going to try and carry the game anyway. So in that same kind of vein, like, you can definitely pick a carry in the offlane if your safe laner is something less greedy, or if they simply do a significantly different job, as Jenkins mentioned, from you. And I mean, we've kind of seen this transition over the last 12 months or so, where we were seeing Ursa in the offlane a lot, Wraith King. I'm still a believer in Sven offlane being reasonably good. And like, what it comes down to is, especially in pubs, what are you comfortable playing, and can you build that hero or play that hero in a way that fits the game? I'd much rather have somebody who has played 500 games of, what's a normal, like Ember Spirit in the offlane, than have them on their first game of Tidehunter.
I agree so much. in this patch in particular,
Yeah,
like an Ember offlane is perfectly fine as long as the lane is good. and you're capable of playing it. Like a lot of the time you can play a hero, the lane will just be good because you're good at the hero.
Exactly.
That's perfectly fine. If you're a really good Drow, then fuck yeah, play it as a support if you have to.
Yep. I've definitely run Drow in the
we're
offlane
seeing
once or twice.
Axe and Legion Commander support right now, so it's like roles don't mean much as long as you have a good game.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's get on the next question, which is, this one's from Facebook, actually. So thanks for submitting this on a different platform. I went on a 6-game winning streak against people at the same MMR as me. And my next game, everyone was significantly higher on both teams. Does the system just screw me into playing with people that much higher if I perform well? And if so, how can I really progress without a smooth transition of the ranks? It seems I only get placed with people lower than me normally and then abruptly much higher. What gives?
I mean, that's kind of how it is at high rating too. It's like there's two type. There's never really any games, it seems, that you will be placed with a bunch of people of your same rank. I don't know. What do you usually get placed in, Donnie, for in terms of ranks?
So I'm Divine 1 right now, and I would say it kind of oscillates every other game basically. Like in one game, I will be with a bunch of like ancient 1, 2, 3, 4 players. And then the next game, I'll be with like Divine 1 through 5, and even sometimes Immortal. And even when I was an Ancient player, I would still sometimes be the highest MMR on my team with a bunch of Legend players, and sometimes I would be the lowest MMR on my team with a bunch of Divine players. And it really just kind of depends on like what region you're searching in, how many players are online at that current moment. Obviously, whether you're playing ranked roles or not. If you're playing ranked roles, the pool is much smaller, and therefore you're going to have an even bigger spread than you're used to. And honestly, like the system is basically just trying to get you a game as quickly as possible that's as balanced as possible. So, I mean, I'm sure that there's kind of like a sweet spot where if you're maybe like Archon, because Archon, I think, has the most people that play Dota, like across all the regions. So I think at Archon, most games are going to be relatively balanced. Although this person who's asking the question is Archon 4, so it's like, but that's kind of on the cusp of being Legend. So
you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like it kind of makes sense that you would be placed with people higher than you and then lower than you as well, because like the algorithm would prefer to teach people to be better at Dota, right? If you're designing a game and you're designing an algorithm for matchmaking, you would want to put people in scenarios where they're going to learn and get better, right? Especially if it's like a competitive game. Yeah. Like it might actually be a completely intentional thing that's happening. Come to think of it, because from the sounds of it, it happens at every bracket.
Yeah, and also one thing that is important to keep in mind is that the whole spectrum of MMR like kind of moves a little bit, like from month to month, because sometimes you'll get to a rank and then you'll fall back down and you'll just be like at some rank for, you know, a couple months, and then all of a sudden you'll go on a winning streak again, you'll get to that percentage again, and suddenly you'll rank up like 3 or 4 ranks in a row really quickly. And that's because the MMR spectrum might have shifted to where each medal is more difficult to actually progress to, or easier to progress to if there's more people that have moved in the MMR spectrum. And so I think that this kind of like oscillation of the people that you're playing with is natural to the system, and it's actually something you can learn from, and it makes you be more creative in your games. You're gonna have to like
just prepare for it drafting wise. That's my biggest suggestion. Just have heroes that you want to play in those high rated games, maybe things like you're very, very comfortable with. Maybe your whatever role is your specialty, maybe even to switch to support if you feel like people are a lot better than you, and because it tends that the support roles have a lot less control over the game, so there's a lot less pressure on you to do a lot. Mostly you just focus on like the laning phase, which is a lot easier in terms of like controlling and carrying the game, winning a pub. And for the lower rated games, you're gonna need something with more control. Maybe you switch to like mid or something like that. At least that's what I do. If I get like a low rated game, I'll pick like mid brood. If I get a high rated game, I'll pick whatever my most comfortable role is, which is offlane, and I'll pick like my best heroes. And if I have to pick support, I'll pick Pudge because that's one of my most comfortable heroes, I should say, and confident. Same thing.
And also, generally speaking, if you're in one of these games with a wide spread, just try and make your highest metal highest rated person have the best game possible. Is like what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
if you have if
sure.
you're, let's say you're an Archon like 3 or 4 or something like that, and you have a Legend 5 or like Ancient Invoker on your team, and everybody else in the game is like in the Legend or Archon bracket, just make that Ancient Invoker have a very good laning stage, and they'll probably carry you. And like that's one of the best ways to rank up. That's like the Slacks school of thought as far as gaining MMR.
It
Just
works
find
for him, man.
yeah, find the best player on your team and make sure they have a good game.
Isn't Slacks immortal now?
No, I don't think so.
He's pretty good though. He's actually pretty good. I played with him before.
Yeah, and it's just because like he empowers his teammates to be better.
You empower your highest rated player for sure. You don't empower some very low rated player. You'll be very disappointed.
That's true.
That's one of the crazy things about Dota is that like you can take some guy that would absolutely crush in like an Archon game, put him in like a Legend game, and he'll just like feed like an idiot and look like a moron.
Mhm.
Same thing like for Divine, Ancient. Same thing for like top 10, top 100. Like you could take all of these players, put them in a high rated game, that look so out of their element in like a complete dumbass. So you just need to make sure to empower the guy that's going to look like the smallest dumbass possible, make the least dumbass decisions possible, and react to the enemy's dumbass decisions better. Because of course, the lower rated you are, the more dumbass decisions there's going to be. And anyway, it's crazy. It's the same thing. Tier 1, Tier 2 teams. We made a video about that recently. Check that out.
I mean, and here's the thing, right? So, what does Team Liquid do? They empower Miracle to have a good game every single game possible.
It actually works.
Like, they won a TI.
Works. Yes, it's.
What did OG do? They empowered Ana to have a good game every single game because he was their best player.
Well, depending on the game.
Depending on the, sometimes they empower Thompson.
Thompson or Ana. They would never empower Seb. Seb was always like.
He was always a sacrificial player.
He was always on his own, yeah.
What does Secret do? They empower Nisha and they empower Mid One. Like they don't focus, and YapzOr just does his own thing, but like they're not trying to actively give anybody except for their 2 best players or highest mechanically skilled carry players best game possible.
Depends on the game too, like the draft.
Yeah.
Whoever's on like the more comfort hero that they know can carry.
Exactly.
It's funny actually because back in the day when I was playing on Leviathan, we would pick me Pudge and we would empower me as the Pudge, which is so ridiculous. But it was just that I was so comfortable in the hero that like if I was empowered on Pudge, I would actually hit a few game-winning hooks and just the game is over. Because the way that hero used to work is like you hit 1 or 2 hooks in the late game, it's just over.
Yeah.
And now kind of maybe not so much. With things have gotten really weird in Dota. All the cores are like equally strong. Back then it was like you hook that one guy and you'll fucking win the game. But that's you empower comfort. You empower people who are going to carry the game, and it works at all skill levels, obviously.
Right. Is there a platinum Dota Plus tier Meepo player on your team? Make sure they have a good game, and you're gonna win.
Hell yeah,
like 100% of the time.
Jesus Christ, dude! If I see somebody selecting Meepo and they have like 500 games with Meepo, it's like I'm picking Wyvern just to deny pick it from the enemy team.
Yep. It's
like,
actually a really, really good strategy. If there's somebody with a super high rated Dota buff medal, you just like do whatever you can to make that hero have a good game.
Yeah, it works. I can guarantee you it works. I mean, there's support players that do that to top 100. So.
Yep. All right, next question. This one's gonna be kind of a fun and short one. Can you please show us how to really counter Bristleback? I've had little success every time I play against him.
Oh my goodness.
This is like the ultimate like mid-tier pub hero.
All right, dude. Okay, pick Necrophos. That hero annihilates Bristleback in lane. If Necrophos is not available, pick Faceless Void. You press Time Dilation. He can't do anything. Also, you just jump all of his damage and regen all of his damage. And then get a hero that gets a Silver Edge. Like, you Silver Edge... The reason that hero is, like, dog shit is because if you Silver Edge him, he does nothing. He does absolutely goddamn nothing. Like, the hero literally loses his entire purpose, which is his tankiness and his bristle spamming if you Silver Edge him. You can also pick Viper because he has a break mechanic, and he kites the bristle too. You can pick Brewmaster because Brewmaster you can just ignore the Bristleback. Like there's so many ways to deal with Bristle right now. Like you can literally, he's so bad, you can literally just kill him by picking a hero that's really good at laning against him, getting a break mechanic, or you can go with the old school approach when Bristle was actually good and you can kite him. You can just ignore him and leave him until the end because the hero does not do damage. He doesn't do damage. He's terrible. He doesn't do damage.
No,
If you don't,
he does do damage if you're hitting him.
Well, yeah,
other than that, he doesn't do damage.
Like, the hero's actually so bad right now that you can hit him and he still won't do enough to be an effective hero as long as you have good heroes against him. Ursa's good against him in the lane too. That's enough heroes that, like, if you pick any of these heroes, Bristle does not have a game because he will not come online. Like, he does not get to a point where he does enough damage. Where, like, the only way Bristle is strong right now is if you feed him and then he becomes, like, unkillable. And that's it. But even then, if you pick up a Silver Edge, he's still killable. That's why the hero is so weak right now. Is because, like, no matter what happens, no matter how tanky he gets, you can still pick up a Silver Edge and just nullify his entire existence, or some sort of break mechanic on a hero, with Viper. You put down the Nether Toxin. I know it's not a popular hero, but it's a fucking amazing hero against Bristle. If somebody is picking a bad hero like Bristle and you don't counter him, then it's like, yeah, you kind of deserve to lose at that point because, like, the reason the hero's bad is because so many counters exist to him. That's like a lot of the time, like, I see people in pubs, like, they'll see a Slark and it's like, oh man, we won, they got a Slark. It's like, well, no, because we don't have any counters to Slark. So, like, the hero's still really good if you don't have counter. Like, the reason these heroes aren't picked and are bad is because counters exist to them. You have to actually pick the counters. You have to actually build the counters. I've seen so many people play, Bristle. They don't pick up a Silver Edge. They just leave it a Shadow Blade. And it's like, you can rush Silver Edge on a Faceless Void against that hero. It is terrible. It is so hard to play that. Spectre, same thing. People play against Spectre, they don't pick up a Silver Edge. Oh man, she's so unkillable. Yeah, that's because you don't have a Silver Edge on your team. You didn't draft a Silver Edge carrier against a hero who has ridiculous passives and is unkillable with the passive. You need to draft a Silver Edge carrier because you don't want to build a Silver Edge on, like, an Ancient Apparition. I mean, it's good enough that you probably should, but at that point, it's like you're ruining your game by building the Silver Edge on that hero. At that point, it's like you should have just drafted a hero that should pick up these items against these other heroes. And if they do end up last picking a Bristle and you can't pick a you can't, like, pick a hero that picks one of these items up, then still get a Silver Edge, because if somebody's last picking a hero, their entire draft is centered around that hero, and then you can actually commit to getting a Silver Edge on a non-standard hero to get a Silver Edge on. So basically, break mechanics, own Bristle, own him in the laning phase. Those two things. He is completely useless. That hero is very, very hard to play right now.
Timbersaw, super good against Bristleback. Undying, also pretty good against Bristleback. Anybody that can make him less tanky and doesn't give a shit about his physical damage is pretty damn good against Drow. And then, yeah, I mean, Tigers literally ran OD in a Grand Finals deciding match today.
Go for it.
And they won, even though it's literally one of the worst heroes in the game. But they were able to pick it against a Dragon Knight in lane and against a bunch of other really terrible heroes against OD. And they fucking stomped. So
yeah, I mean, if somebody's picking a bad hero, punish them for it. Make them suffer for being dumb in their choices of heroes. Like there's so many pubs that I see lost because people just play regular shit against irregular shit. And it's like, bro, you're just leaving this hero uncountered. And sure, it sucks, but it only sucks because there are counters.
Right. Exactly. All right, next question. You mentioned keeping a hero journal. Do you have an example of how to structure one?
I mean, I just open up a notepad file and keep a list of the hero, I like a list of roles, and then the heroes that I'll play in each role, and then some of the scenarios, like what I would pick it into, like why I actually would pick that hero. That's basically, it's very simple. And the more complicated part of it is to, like, keep it updated, because sometimes you'll throw stuff in there that makes sense, a month before, and then a month later it doesn't make sense anymore because people aren't picking, like, Lycan falls off or Drow falls off or whatever hero falls off to make the hero, like, not relevant anymore. So, like, getting things out of there when they actually should be removed from there is the hard part. And if you can do that, you'll just have this list of, like, heroes that you can completely obliterate with. And you'll obviously win a lot of MMR picking heroes into scenarios that they're, like, really good in. I mean, we talked about, picking heroes that are really good against Bristol as a even though the hero's bad, just to punish the fact that somebody picked Bristol. It's the exact same thing. Like, there are heroes that you can pick against, like, really popular heroes, like, Drow, or, like, so somebody picks an Alchemist. Like there are heroes that you can pick that you can keep in that hero journal, and if you have it up to date, then you'll always have an answer for the enemy team's drafts. And if you always have an answer, you're just gonna have like a way higher than 50% win rate. And if you have a higher than 50% win rate, well, congratulations, you're gonna be immortal at some point if you can keep that up.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing, like, it's kind of cliche at this point to say it, but Dota is a very cyclical game. And even with massive changes to the map, Roshan being shifted to a different side, shrines being added, heroes like Morphling and Tiny being completely reworked, both of those heroes still function the same.
They do, yeah.
Like, Morphling is essentially the same hero that Morphling was 5 years ago, just has a different ultimate. But still a hero that generally is on a very small amount of HP for a certain part of the game, and then becomes this like insanely high armor, really high damage burst hero later on. Tiny, very tanky hero all the time, very high base damage, slow moving, huge amount of burst damage during the mid game, kind of falls off afterwards.
Yep.
Like, even though he has an entirely different skill set than he used to, and the talents and everything, he's still the same hero that he was in Dota 1, literally in Dota 1. And so whatever heroes were good against Tiny in Dota 1 are still pretty good against Tiny in Dota 2.
They do a very good job at like keeping like, this is why this hero exists. Like Ricky is another good example, completely reworked. Still that stealthy, annoying piece of shit that runs around the map killing couriers and supports and stuff like that.
Yep. And that's why you still pick Spirit Breaker against him and stuff like that. There are heroes in lane that can't be harassed, like Viper and Huskar and stuff like that. And, that's why, like, okay, PL's back in the meta. Better pick up a Sven. Better pick up a Bloodseeker.
One example of a scenario where this has actually changed recently? Do you want to guess? Where like a hero completely hard countered another, but now that hero gets hard countered by what originally countered it? Wait a minute. Anyway, Axe and Dazzle. Dazzle completely annihilates Axe right now. Like, the reason people pick Axe is because you cut waves and Dazzle just puts the poison touch on. And
yeah,
that's like one of the rare examples. I found that so interesting the other day, where like somebody picked Dazzle against me when I was Axe, and I was like, I'm gonna own this guy. Then I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything against him.
Because you're just constantly getting poison touch refreshed.
Yeah, because the creeps constantly refresh it. So it's like you actually just take like 2,000 damage from it. It's fucking impossible. But anyway, I'm sorry. That's
actually really interesting. I mean, but at the same time, it's like Axe still counters Dazzle in the mid game.
In the mid game, right. Precisely. I mean, technically speaking, Dazzle actually used to counter Axe because he stands in creep waves. What does Dazzle love for people to do? Stand on fucking creep waves. You're gonna take 500 physical damage. I said every wrong damage type.
Might as well be pure damage because Axe's armor is so low without call. So
that's true. Stout Shield doesn't do shit for that.
Yeah. But I mean, essentially, like, hero journals are kind of OP because, like, if we're still playing Dota 3 years from now and suddenly, like, they overbuff fucking, I don't know, Pangolier. Let's say Pangolier's dog shit for the next, like, 2 years, and suddenly they overbuff him. It's like,
boom, Bloodseeker counters him.
Whoa, oh yeah, Bloodseeker, Naga Net really counters him.
But cool. Nobody picks Bloodseeker right now. Why would you pick Bloodseeker? Because Pangolier's broken. And you'll be the first to pick it in the meta, and everybody will start picking it because that's how the meta shift works. Yep. It lets you predict meta shifts.
It actually works. I've actually, not gonna like brag too much, but I've actually done stuff that pros have done before they did it in competitive a number of times, just because I pay very close attention to what's popular, and then I try to counter it because I really don't like picking in meta stuff. Really boring to me to play the same OP heroes over and over. So I spend almost all of my time trying to find out what counters them because I don't want to play the same shit for like 6 straight months. And so, like, hey, look, I've literally been ahead of the curve like 5 or 6 times on heroes. I was picking Bloodseeker before he got super overbuffed, and I was winning every single fucking game. And then all of a sudden, like 3 months later, he was winning every game in pros.
That hero has been so cancer.
Well, yeah, but he was always trash because he would fall off after the early game. But then once they overbuffed Thirst, I was like, wait, you can actually just win the game in the first 15 minutes. Nobody's going to be able to come back. Anyway, last question. Since we can't all last pick, I really like this question. Since we can't all last pick, how do I draft, even in captain's mode, for an instance where you have to pick your offlane, but you don't know the enemy carry. What do I take into account? Jenkins once mentioned the 3 types of lanes, but you can't really know what lane you'll be against until it's already picked.
I mean, you just want versatile heroes in that scenario. Like you want, there's actually a few ways that you can go about this. I think this is a topic that we've covered on one of the site videos, like subscriber only videos. So I don't think it's on the channel yet, but basically there's a few ways that you can pick here. You can either pick something you're very comfortable with, where it doesn't matter what they're going to pick. You'll just be good enough that you can outplay. It's good to have a few of those heroes. If you don't, I would definitely practice some heroes that you really, really enjoy, because it's really nice to just be like, I don't know what to pick, I'm picking Pudge. And you know you'll have like a good game because you're good at Pudge. But you can also pick heroes that are very versatile, like a hero, for instance, Mirana. That hero doesn't really care what she's laying against, she'll do fine. She can play the harass lane, the sustain lane, she can play in whatever sort of lane. One of the big reasons that she's a top pick and that like Tiny is a top pick is because these heroes, you can throw them into any scenario and they'll be fine. That's essentially Mario picks.
Necrophos.
Right, Necrophos is one of these weird heroes that like he used to be considered to be like a very specific hero, but then people realized that like Reaper Scythe is so broken, and the fact that the sustain in the lane is so broken that you can pick it in any scenario and do relatively well. It's a weird one, but yeah, Necro's fine. Basically, Necro's in like the category of so overpowered that it's a versatile pick right now. Even though like Pugna hard counters Necro, and Pugna's really good right now. Still, like, you just want a Necro in your game if you can have one, because the hero's so fucking good.
Yeah, you crush some lanes, like against melee cores. You can run at them in the off lane. You can run at them safe lane. You can play mid against a hero that's trying to just harass you down. And even if you have a terrible game on Necrophos, say you get hard countered by like the next 3 picks, you just Reaper somebody, and the game's over.
Right. It's like nothing anybody can do will make Reaper Scythe stop increasing people's death timer.
Yeah.
Nothing will do that. So
I do think though that Shadow Demon might arguably make Necro's game unplayable.
She has to Reaper Scythe the Shadow Demon, man. I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have to Reaper Scythe the Shadow Demon. But if you don't, you get disrupted, and then you get Demonic Purge, and you're actually not even a hero.
Yeah, that is. You can also save people from getting scythed. It's a good hero. It's definitely like a solid counter to Necro. One of the best counters in Dota to Necro. Probably the best, to be honest. Him and Pugna are really good. Pugna's more... Shadow Demon's like less highly rated than Pugna is, but definitely good. Very, very good. But anyway, yeah, Ogre's a good example too, by the way. Just fucking throw an Ogre in the offlane. What's anybody ever going to do to an Ogre? It's just versatile, broken. If you can find a versatile and broken hero, that's like that's the combo, you know? So Ogre's great.
Honestly, same for supports, like, because usually it's support and offlane that has to pick first. I mean, people kind of understand that it's like carry and mid that pick towards the end of the draft. And so it's usually the offlane and the supports that have to pick early on. And if you are playing a support and nobody's picking, and literally none of your teammates are showing what heroes they want to play, just pick an Ogre, because there's a very high chance that you're going to have at least 2 people that rely on right clicks being drafted after you. Buff them up, you're super tanky, and you make the enemy team waste a bunch of spells on you, and you make the rest of your team way stronger. It's like the ultimate pick against the 4 carry lineups that you see in like low level pubs. Like,
yeah,
okay, so we got a jungle Bloodseeker, we've got a PA safe lane, got a Phantom Lancer in the mid, and we have, I don't know, like a Sven in the off lane. What do all of those heroes want? Attack speed. Ogre Magi is the pick.
Ogre's always the pick.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And not just now when it's strong. Just like this was relevant even.
Yeah. It's a good hero.
All right. Well, that ends Alchemy Answers episode 13. Thanks for joining me, Jenkins. Any last words?
Thanks for joining me, Donnie.
Oh,
who's that?
That's my dog, Cusco. He wants to get in my room and say hi.
Couscous wants to say hi. There he is.
Hey,
There's
buddy.
Couscous.